First day. I normally get sacked on the first day.
Welcome to the Game of Thrones set. It's gonna be fun. 7 a.m. in the morning. Woo!
Hey.
We're in Banbridge. This is the studios for basically all of Winterfell.
How's it going?
3, 2, 1, action!
I was quite young and I had such a big imagination. In those scenes when I was younger, I would really convince myself that I was there and it was happening, you know?
I'd never had any experience of acting before.
I went to a very theatrically based drama school. We did 3 hours of camera training in 3 years. But then my 4th hour in front of a camera was day 1 on Game of Thrones.
My first day on set was Castle Black. My first scene was, there's just a very quick scene where I'm walking down the ramparts and I was so nervous.
Yeah, I remember my first day on set. Oh my God, I fell off a fucking horse. Jesus, this is my first job. This is like the first thing I ever did, and they stuck me on a horse. Oh, I was falling off the horse trying to act still.
Wow. Khaleesi.
Okay, let's do it again, please.
I remember my first scene we shot from the pilot, and that was the king's arrival. You know, the king rides in on horseback, and he has to get off his horse, and his robe was enormous. The horse rides in, he's like, ah, and then hold, everyone, and then they run in with him like a ladder. They help him down, and they run out with the ladder, and then carry on. Oh, here we go.
I vaguely remember it. It was like Sean Bean and Mark Addy and Lena, and I remember being so overwhelmed and terrified.
I remember everybody clearly. I remember baby Sophie and baby Maisie and baby Isaac. And now they're, you know, out there, full grown.
And here we are, season 8.
It's cinematic. We're making 10-hour movies every year.
The fact that this is really a full stop on this story is sad, because I think everyone's been so invested in this story that we never want to see this come to a close, but it must, and it will be good.
Hey everybody, it's Charlie. They dropped a couple new behind-the-scenes promos for Game of Thrones Season 8, Episode 1. We're literally almost a day away from Episode 1 getting here, so we'll break some of this down because the actors also talk about the very first scene that they filmed during Season 8 and the very first scene that they filmed on the series in general way back during Season 1. There was also a really interesting question that you guys asked me about the Night King in Winterfell in terms of what he can and can't do using his magic. So I'll explain that too. There's a lot of historical context for Winterfell, magic, Bran the Builder, going way back to the building of the wall. If you're brand new to my channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the Season 8 videos. We'll be doing that weekly HBO Now giveaway too. All you have to do to enter that is be a subscriber and leave a comment on the video. The footage you see here is basically Jon Snow, Sansa, Bran Stark, Brienne of Tarth, Missandei, Jorah Mormont, Davos. Obviously, if they're sitting there, then Emilia Clarke is somewhere else too, because we've actually gotten a couple more pictures of this scene that they're filming inside the Great Hall of Winterfell. Apparently, that was the very first scene that they filmed for Season 8. You have Daenerys, Sansa, Jon sitting at the table. Then in this shot here, you can actually see Bran sitting way off in the background right next to the table on the left side of the frame, where Brienne is sitting next to the Little Bear, Jon, Royce, and Davos. Sansa is still wearing her old outfit from last season. She hasn't got that leather armor upgrade that you see in all those other pictures. That might come later in the episode or maybe during episode 2. But Daenerys gets a whole bunch of costume changes, so it makes sense that Sansa would have a bunch of costume changes as well. They talk about all their funny moments during the very first scene that they filmed during Season 1, Episode 1 for the pilot episode. I assume that they're talking about the legit pilot and not the scrapped pilot that everybody keeps making fun of. Nikolai Coster-Waldau, Jaime Lannister, was making fun of that original pilot a little while ago during an interview. Who knows if we'll ever get to see footage of that, but they keep saying that it's terrible, so I assume that they won't release that. The funny thing about Kit Harington's very first scene is he said he was up at the wall, so he'd already taken the black at that point in the story, just walking along that corridor, trying not to mess up. But then when Sophie Turner is talking about her very first scene as Sansa Stark, she's talking about when Robert Baratheon arrived, and Nikolai Coster-Waldau also talks about some of the funny moments during that, like trying to get Robert off of his horse. Like it took a whole bunch of crew members, they had to put a giant box next to the horse just because his robe was so long, and it wound up being so awkward that they had to cut around it. I'm assuming most of the other Stark children, like Maisie Williams, also had their very first scene in this moment too, if Sansa was having her first scene then. But you notice Jon Snow in the background of that shot, so he was here for that scene, and Kit Harington was filming before this. So I'm assuming the scene of Robert Baratheon and the Lannisters meeting the Starks happened much later in the filming schedule than some of this early stuff up at the wall. But like when John Bradley talks about his first moments as Sam up on set, he didn't actually join the show till after the pilot. Sam's like the only person in this video that talks about having his first scene that wasn't during the pilot. The interesting thing about Emilia Clarke's first day on set that she talks about, obviously it's a funny story, she kept falling off her horse because she didn't know how to ride a horse, she was right out of school, so it was just really awkward and she kind of chuckles her way through it. But this scene didn't happen in the pilot episode, they actually put it during episode 2, so maybe they just filmed it while they were filming all these pilot scenes and thought that it worked better during episode 2. But if you ever go back and you watch the pilot, which you may have done recently, if you look at the scene of Robert and Ned in the crypts going to Lyanna Stark's statue, you notice that Sean Bean's hair looks very different from the earlier scene when they're in the courtyard. That's because they reshot a lot of that courtyard scene, but the scene of them in the crypts is from the original pilot. The reason why he looks so different is because in that original pilot, they made Jaime Lannister, Ned Stark, all the older characters look a little bit younger than they do in the final version of the pilot that we all wound up seeing. So sort of transitioning to that big Winterfell Night King theory that people have been asking me, you all remember that first Game of Thrones Season 8 trailer where we got footage of Varys, the women and children like Gilly and Baby Sam in the crypts hiding during the big battle of Winterfell? There are a lot of people since then that have asked me if the Night King could use his magic to raise all the Stark dead in the crypts. Like if the Night King can raise anybody that's dead, technically if you have a bunch of dead bodies in this underground graveyard, couldn't he raise them as whites and use them as fodder for his army? The show has also set precedent that the Night King can turn full skeletons into White Walkers. It doesn't have to be a freshly dead person, because Season 4, Episode 10, when they're all trying to enter the Three-Eyed Raven's Cave, all those Ray Harryhausen-looking skeleton whites come up like a bunch of landmines to try and stop them from entering. If you know a little bit about the origins of Winterfell, its history actually goes back to the creation of the wall. Bran the Builder was supposed to have built Winterfell after he built the wall with the help of the giants. So the giants helped build the wall, but the giants also helped build Winterfell. The thing is, though, is that most of the original structures above ground from that time have not survived. Bran the Builder built the wall many thousands of years ago, way before the Andals invaded. The oldest part of Winterfell right now that's still standing is the first keep. That's where Bran accidentally caught Cersei and Jaime playing hide the pickle and then got pushed out the window.
The things I do for love.
That was built around the time of the Andal invasion, which was a couple thousand years after the creation of Winterfell. So there's still like a lot of older structures that just didn't survive, except for the Godswood in the crypts, because Bran the Builder built Winterfell around the Godswood for a very specific reason. And if you notice, the crypts, even though they're underground, are located right next to the Godswood. So think about it this way, if there was special magic used to enchant the wall when it was built, Bran the Builder would have known about that. He also probably had some enchantments laid on Winterfell that helped protect it. But this is many thousands of years ago, and in present day, what just happened a couple seasons ago, Bran was marked by the Night King. The Three-Eyed Raven said that because he's marked you, that's broken the enchantment on the wall and he can now pass south. It's not enough to just use Viserion to melt the wall, he had to break the enchantment before he could use the dragon to do that. So if you consider that the idea of the Three-Eyed Raven, the person that holds that enchantment and keeps it in place, is a transitive thing, like it's passed from one person to another, the Three-Eyed Raven tells Bran, it's time for you to become me, and uploads his consciousness and all of his knowledge and his magic into Bran. So when the Night King broke the enchantment on the wall by marking Bran, he also probably broke any other enchantments that were laid around the creation of the wall, which would be the stuff down at Winterfell. So if there were special enchantments protecting the crypts at Winterfell to keep the dead from rising again, because if Bran the Builder built the crypts and he knew all about the White Walkers, then he would probably try to do something to prevent any of the Stark dead from being used against them. But even if any magical protections from the crypts are gone, think about it this way from a practical standpoint. Varys, Gilly, Baby Sam will all probably survive beyond the Battle of Winterfell, meaning that there probably aren't any whites that are raised down there. The doors to the crypts are made of ironwood, which is really hard to burn with anything but say like Dragonfire or Viserion's fire. So it really is one of the safest places to go in Winterfell. The crypts themselves are actually much, much larger underground than the above-ground castle of Winterfell itself. So you just have to imagine like this giant iceberg of dead people underneath Winterfell. The further down you go in the crypts, the older the Stark dead. So you have to guess that Bran the Builder is probably buried on the lowest level, but they say that the lower levels have all been collapsed. So hopefully that explains, just from a practical standpoint, why they probably won't be raising a whole bunch of undead Stark skeletons during the Battle of Winterfell. I may do one more bonus video before episode 1 happens. Sunday, they're also doing a special panel for the Mandalorian Star Wars TV series, so I'll do a trailer video for that too. Leave all your requests in the comments below. I'll remind everybody about the HBO Now giveaway in my episode 1 video on Sunday. I'll name a giveaway winner on Monday when I post that episode 2 trailer video. So while you wait for everything, click here for all my Game of Thrones Season 8 trailer videos and bonus videos, and click here for that brand new Star Wars Episode 9 trailer. Congratulations everybody, the long wait is over. I'll see you guys tonight.